live. And I have Wade here from Volatility Protocol. Wade, would you mind just giving us a quick introduction of yourself? And how did you end up coming into actually founding a Volatility Protocol?
Yeah, so my background is actually in something called serious game design or games for impact. And so I worked for many years designing games for, large NGO and government partners, but became kind of keenly interested in the Ethereum space in 2017. And that's actually how I met my co-founder. He made one of the first playable games on Ethereum. It was called Ethereum, and it launched in early 2018. And I just, kind of came in actually through NFTs and became extremely interested, but then started doing ETH Global hackathons, and kept in touch with my co-founder over 2 years. And in December of 2020, we saw an ETH Global hackathon, and we decided to sign up for it to try and make a VIX-style volatility calculation for Ether. And things kind of snowballed from there.
All right. So for anyone who doesn't know, what does a game theorist do?
Yeah. So, and let me differentiate. So, like, game theory is is something that economists do, and so that's actually a bit different from what I do. So, my background is very much understanding how games play and gamification can incentivize people to do a few different things. How can people learn from that? How can people change their behavior? Or how can researchers generate data to say something meaningful using those? And so I would design systems, usually in partnership with like a university or like the World Bank or UNICEF or a government to build something that does that. I find that it lends, I don't have an academic background in game theory or even the other side of that, mechanism design, but the two cross over enough that when I started trying to bring gamification and play and games into tokenomics and crypto economic primitives, and then started reading about game theory and how people are doing different things, it's really helped me design quite a bit in this space.
And how does that translate into volatility? And maybe just as a intro to that, what is Volatility Protocol?
Yeah, so let's start with what is Volatility Protocol. So Volatility Protocol, we are basically creating volatility measures for crypto assets, and we are building the infrastructure to bring those measures on chain. And so when we look at the space, there are actually lots of people that are computing volatility in some way. So there are kind of model-free methods, which is similar to a VIX-style calculation, which uses options chains. And then there's realized volatility measures, which use the realized prices on an exchange to create a volatility measure. And when you look at what everybody else is doing, quite often the methodology and code for how they are computing volatility is opaque. It's difficult to understand, and so it's difficult to understand how they got that number for volatility in the simplest terms. The other problem with that is that there's also, no real way to verify it coming on chain. So if we look at how they're using existing Oracle systems to get it on chain, that's either opaque or the Oracle system is verifying the source of truth. So this number is coming from this centralized entity that's computing it, but we don't know whether that centralized entity is computing it transparently or in the correct way. It's difficult to critique the way that they are computing it. And so what we're trying to do is we're trying to make the methodology completely open and available, the code for computation or the algorithm completely open source. And then, we're scaffolding on top of UMA's optimistic oracle to actually modify it slightly so that instead of it being an infrequent request for a price, that it's a very frequent request for a price, which allows us to then bring an index on chain.
Nice. Thank you very much for that. And so you talk about these different measures of volatility, and on your website you talk about composable volatility. if I am a developer, a financial engineer, and I want to use these feeds, what type of products and what type of services would an engineer and a financial engineer build using these composable volatility feeds?
Yeah. So, we are most interested in kind of creating these. Let me start over. So, we are most interested in looking for creative developers or financial engineers to make things on blockchain, which can only be done on blockchain. And what I mean by that is you could see using a volatility measure to help understand collateralization ratios on MakerDAO, or for Aave or Compound to help people better collateralize or more efficiently use capital. And having a trustable, index on chain that you can compose into a smart contract to do that is really interesting. And so we really want to push teams to build things that haven't been done in traditional finance with these volatility measures.
Moving on to more specifically your the vol and the governance token. Can you maybe talk about what role the token plays in your organization, and how does it fit in with general governance type tokens?
Yeah, so vol is a utility token. Its first utility is governance for the Volatility Protocol DAO. And so it's being used currently in two ways for that. The first is to simply aggregate a user's preferences in voting. So you can use the token to vote on different proposals. And I think we've voted on like over 20 proposals on the direction of everything from rewards to setting up the DAO to helping to organize a hackathon that we're doing. The other side of the utility that we currently have, the other side of the utility that we're currently building out is actually using the vol token to help secure these data feeds of volatility to bring them on chain. So, with UMA's optimistic oracle, the requester puts up a reward, the proposer puts up a bond, and the disputer puts up a bond. And what we're building on top of that is basically a way for the DAO to first approve a methodology, and then a way for the proposer to, instead of be one actor within the system, to be a collective group of people. So to be the DAO itself, and it uses the vol token through a staking mechanism to aggregate lots of bonds. And so the token itself will actually be used to help secure the data.
Awesome. As a kind of design choice, what drew you to UMA, and what was the decision around using UMA over any of the other type of protocols out there that offer similar services? But yeah, what was the specific attraction to UMA?
So I'm not sure that he remembers this. So first is I actually met Hart at a hackathon in, I believe, 2018 in ETH Global Hackathon. And so just, UMA's kind of footprint out in the broader community was something that we were really pleased with and really happy about just within the broader ecosystem. Then when we're looking at an Oracle solution, it's really important for us to have, some sort of human arbitration inside of that, where people are actually looking at the methodology, the open source code, and there's some sort of dispute mechanism in place that if there's some sort of vector of attack that happens, or it just breaks, where actual people are making this decision. And so the optimistic oracle is just, in our mind, an ideal solution for validating methodologies and algorithms.
And so from this hackathon to kind of starting out the founding of Volatility Protocol, forming the team, launching the token, it's been quite a journey for you and your team. In that time, What has your experience been with working with Uma, the technology itself, and the team that you engage with on a frequent basis?
Yeah, I have nothing but basically like the best things to say about the experience. So, especially coming from, both academia and consulting, I've never had an experience where a competitor really comes in and says, we want to help you, right? So I think that we're synergistic. We're not really competitors, but I've never had the experience where another company says, not only do we want to help you, but we can kind of reward you a little bit. So very early on, as we were starting to get this off the ground with the hackathon, our first relationship with Uma was to do some research for you, and that kind of helped us get a little bit of leadway into building this product. And then from there, just getting lots of support in terms of ideas, in terms of introductions to people, in terms of also like cross-pollination events between our two communities. It's just been incredibly invaluable. And so, we're learning a ton, and just all I can say, it's been very positive.
So then moving over to our last question, what's next for Volatility? What's on your roadmap? What are your key focuses in the near term? And what can people that are what can people look forward to come out of the Volatility protocol in the near future?
Yeah, so we really have two tracks that we're working on full time, and we have several team members on each of these tracks. So one, as I said earlier, is just building the infrastructure. So the optimistic Oracle we know works, but we're building a layer of smart contracts on top of that, as I described earlier, that uses our utility token. And so we are currently building that out right now so that we can get index feeds on chain more frequently. The other aspect is, after the hackathon and looking at the space, we noticed that almost everyone is computing volatility from options chains on Deribit. And that's problematic in our opinion for two reasons. One is that it's a centralized data source. And two is that, the options chains are really only for ETH and for BTC. And you can't really do that style of calculation for any other type of token because there just isn't an options chain for it. So, I mean, the volatility measure that's being calculated from that by us and all these other teams is great, but it's only usable for two tokens. And so we have engaged a team of economists to start looking and doing research into realized volatility measures for other tokens, and we'll be releasing some research on that first and then releasing our measures. And we found some very interesting things that we'll be writing about, both in terms of peer-reviewed papers, but also just blog posts that kind of demonstrate that some of these very simple realized volatility measures that people are putting out are just incorrect and probably shouldn't be used for anything except for informational data. And so we're really excited about some of the discoveries there.
Cool. Thank you very much for that. And kind of close off, is there anything that you want to highlight or mention from your team side?
Not from our team side. So from the community side, I think one of the really exciting things that our community is getting behind as we're, doing stuff on the team side is we're going to be launching a Popathon. So, our community decided that it'd be interesting to have basically a hackathon for creating popes, but instead of going after developers, which most hackathons do, they want to reward artists. And so I think just look for that in the future. It should be a very fun event.
Yeah, some of our team is very excited about that. So I personally look forward to it. Plus, I also look forward to expanding my Pope collection because it's been quite a fun time to be in the DeFi space and grow a Pope collection. I'm almost more I have more of a cherished like opinion of my Pope collection than any of my like altcoin collection of like wonderful coins that I've collected over some time. So it's going to be quite an interesting experience, and I think it's a brilliant idea. Yeah, thanks for your time, and we look forward to seeing what comes next from Volatility Protocol.
Great, thank you.